I'm Traci Austin, your host of the People Strategy Podcast. This show provides interviews with organizational leaders and ongoing coaching experiences that highlight elevating people in organizations through a people strategy roadmap. Join me in this episode of the People Strategy Podcast, where I chat with Michelle Cirocco. This woman, let me tell you, she took a very negative personal experience to create an incredibly positive outcome for her life, for her kids, for her passion, and for her mission. And I cannot wait for you to hear this story and the experience of Michelle, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Televerde Foundation. And prior to that, she was the Chief Impact Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, Vice President of Client Success, and many other roles at Televerde. And why is that important? Because as we grow our careers, we move from position to position to position. And you'll hear a story about that as well. So join me in welcoming Michelle to our conversation today. Michelle, it is great to chat with you again today, specifically around what you're doing at Televerde. And I am so curious, why is this work so important to you?
Oh my goodness. So that's such a loaded question. So I've actually been involved in this work for going on almost 30 years. And the reasons why it's important to me today are probably different than they were in the beginning. But, I started my career in this industry, like I said, almost 30 years ago, when I was serving a 7-year sentence in the Arizona Department of Corrections. I was a girl who had made a complete mess of her life, made a couple of really bad decisions, and found myself serving time. And through that experience, I was able to actually rebuild my own life and come out of prison a better person than I was before I went in, provide better opportunities for my children and for my family, and build a career with this organization that was committed to providing incarcerated women with jobs and training and education that enabled them to, like I said, rebuild their lives and transition back into the community successfully. And so I've had the opportunity over all of this time and all of the years that I've worked for this organization to see the impact that meaningful work provides for people when they are transitioning back into the community. It's so important, and it makes a difference, not just in their lives, but in the lives of their children and the lives of their families, and honestly, the safety of our communities.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think what's interesting is I worked for a community action program, and we weren't doing exactly what you were doing here. But one of the things I found within that program in that time is the importance of seeing people bigger than they see themselves. And it's like when you were just sharing a little bit about your story, was there anyone during that time when you were doing time that really saw you bigger than you saw yourself, so that you knew you could step out and have meaningful work?
Absolutely. I think, and that is the beauty of the work that we do, right? For me, the CEO of Televerde, the then CEO of Televerde, Jim Hooker, he believed in me at a time when I could barely believe in myself. And he saw something in me and encouraged me to grow and follow that. And every time I learned something and I was able to do something more, I felt empowered, right? To grow and bloom and become even more. And so that's what our organization, both the Televerde and the Televerde Foundation, is built on, is believing in people until they have the power and the ability to believe in themselves again.
I love that. We believe in people until they have the power and the ability to believe in themselves again. And what does that look like?
It looks like, at the most fundamental level, one of our core values is empower others. And that's really what it is. It's empowering others by encouraging them, strengthening them, giving them the support, the tools, the resources that they need to learn and overcome and develop the resilience to overcome that adversity and blossom.
And so when you're looking at overcoming that, I know that two different organizations. We've got Televerde and Televerde Foundation. Can you explain the distinction between the two?
So Televerde is a for-profit business that was founded 1994, based on the idea of giving women in prison jobs and training and education that we could build a profitable business while providing them with the marketable skills necessary to transition back into the community successfully with meaningful and rewarding work. So it wasn't a company that decided to go outsource labor to the prisons. It was a company who said, we want to make a difference in people's lives by providing them jobs. And therefore, they built this call center inside the women's prison where they learned to sell technology and lead generation, demand generation, inside sales, technical administration for some of the biggest technology companies in the world. And over the next 30 years, Televerde expanded that business to have call centers in 7 women's prisons across the country, Arizona, Indiana, and Florida, as well as expanded the business globally into Argentina and the UK to provide those same services for these global organizations. And the company, during that period of time, has had over 4,000 women who've worked for them while they were incarcerated. And those women have transitioned back into the community to realize extremely high levels of employment, low recidivism rate, and significantly higher salaries than the national average for a formerly incarcerated woman. And the Televerde Foundation was created in 2020 originally to provide those same women with the additional pre and post release reentry support and services that would enable them to be very successful in taking the skills that they learned while they were incarcerated and transitioning back into the community and getting jobs with other organizations. Because we learned over time that there is so much more to reentry than just job skills. The company is very good at teaching the job skills, but the women needed so much more. There's kind of that personal development, healthy relationships, making good decisions, addressing the issues that may have gotten them to prison in the first place, as well as preparing with the workplace readiness stuff, the things that you need to be able to walk into that company and have the confidence and the courage and the belief that you earned and deserved that seat at the table. And so I was asked to start the foundation to help develop those pre-release programs as well as that post-release support that would ensure their success. And that post-release support includes job placement, support for housing, health, scholarships, and certification opportunities for them to continue their education and their career advancement, as well as some tangible support and services that help make that transition back into the community successful. And then, in addition to that, after we had launched that program that was specific for the women of Televerde, I realized that there's so many more women in prison that deserved a similar opportunity to learn skills and get the knowledge to get good jobs when they got out of prison. So many more than the ones that Televerde could employ. And so we launched our workforce development program where we have established, as of right now, we have 5 classrooms, workforce development centers located in women's prisons in Arizona and Indiana, where they go through a 6-month full-time training and development program where they get certified in customer service, inside sales, and technical administration, computer help desk certifications, as well as get university level education. And that is all paired with that reentry programming that we developed for the women of Televerde so that those women can transition back into the community and have a similar experience. And we've had phenomenal results since we launched the Televerde Foundation. Very specifically, we've had almost 700 women go through our programs, both the reentry and the workforce development programs. 475 have transitioned back into the community so far to realize 96% employment within 38 days and with 0% recidivism.
Amazing.
And yeah, like
amazing.
Amazing. So in 4 years, it'll be 4 years in March 1st. Not one person has gone back to prison who's participated in our program. So we're extremely proud of that. And we honestly, we attribute that to the fact that they are able to get into meaningful and gainful employment that has real career opportunities post-release.
So let's talk about that for a second. It's like one of the things that I hear so often is, how do we ensure that we've got the right person in the right seat in our organization and that it's fulfilling to them, that we've got a culture fit from the organization and a personal values piece, right? And so meaningful and fulfilling work. I'm so curious, how do you define that?
Well, I mean, I think for everybody, meaningful and fulfilling work is unique and individual, right? But
Yeah,
in many cases, like the women may or may not have ever had jobs, or the large majority of them had, low wage, low skill jobs, working in restaurants, working fast food, maybe, working hospitality, cleaning houses, that type of stuff. Low wage, low skill jobs, which don't particularly have really great career tracks, right? And so
right.
what we look at is how do we teach them a skill, give them the knowledge and teach them the skill, first of all, that excites them about the idea of learning, introduces them to the idea of business, right? That careers in business and the different that the idea of careers and pathways from an entry level job to a long term career that makes good money, and that's really what we kind of define as that meaningful and rewarding, is that it's something that you enjoy doing and you can see a pathway to success with a company or in an industry that is going to lead to the next thing in your career.
And so what I'm hearing you say is you're planting the seed of, it's not just tomorrow we're looking at. We're looking at, how do we set you up for success, that you're fulfilled and that you want to go into work every day, that you don't have the Sunday scaries.
Yeah, well, so one of the things, that's exactly right. One of the things we talk about from day one is we call them ABC jobs. So, when you get out, you got to get a job, and
Uh-huh.
you got to start earning, right? And you got to start
Right.
making money so you can take care of yourself. And then when you get to that job, it's your responsibility to get there and to basically show up, work hard, demonstrate your work ethic, your commitment, get a promotion, get an advancement, or take that experience and go to the next place where you get a better job, right? And once you're in that better job, it's really time to continue to. I always just tell them you got to outwork everybody else, and be committed to what you're doing, and then start investing in yourself to learn more skills, more knowledge, and take that back to the workplace so that you can take that better job and get promoted up into the next thing, or go on to the what's going to be your ultimate kind of career pathway, and continue that approach to employment for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And that is not advice that's specific for one group. That's advice for anybody,
Anybody,
right?
right? Like,
Yeah.
what? My goodness, what if they told it? What if they started telling us that in high school? Like, how different
Yeah.
would our journeys be, right?
And I'm thinking about, my 18-year-old right now that started dishwashing at a local restaurant. And he's like, "Mom, I hate it." I said, "You have to do it for a month and then we can go find something else." And I'm like, "Well, what do you like?" He's like, "Well, I like to swim." "Well, let's go get your lifeguard certification."
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Then it was the
right.
next, and then it was the next. But I love how you just name that in a way that anyone can grasp onto that. And again, that's for anyone, right?
Yeah, yeah, ABC.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So we've got some amazing numbers here, right? I mean, the 0% recidivism rate, which is completely different than what we typically see, and it's like, as an HR consultant, and I'm working with clients all the time, when we see backgrounds come in, it's like, nope, not hiring that one. It's like, well, wait a second. Why are we allowing this one thing to impact that? So do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Look, it's such a challenging thing, right? It's you look at somebody's background, and it's very easy and quick to make a judgment. And if you'll indulge me for a minute, Tracy, like I think there's a lot of things that people don't really think about in this space. You know, 1 in 3 people in our country have a criminal record. That is as many people as there are in our country that have a college degree. So to start out with, it's if you're an employer and you are trying to fill positions and you're having trouble filling positions, if you are eliminating 1/3 of our population before you get started, you're never going to get there, right? So that's kind of the first thing that I would say. Then I'd also say that what you see in a background check, like what's listed out, that doesn't tell you what the whole story is. That doesn't tell you what really actually happened or how that person ended up in that situation. Something people don't actually think about is that 80% of women who were trafficked have a criminal record as a result of that, of being trafficked.
80% of women that are trafficked have a criminal record. What percentage of women are trafficked? And I know that that number changes significantly.
I don't know the specifics, but a number that I do know is that greater than 70% of women who are incarcerated have some history of sexual abuse and trauma. You know, when somebody has been through whatever it was, whatever the situation was, you know, that ended up in the criminal record, there's always a story behind it. And when that person is out and looking for that job, they are there trying to rebuild their life. If we all stop and ask ourselves, you know, do you want to be judged for the rest of your life based on the worst decisions you ever made on the worst days of your life? You know, fundamentally, we have to ask ourselves that. Or do we all deserve the opportunity to put our past behind us, right? Because it is our past, and move forward and rebuild our lives and have the opportunity to rebuild our lives and become a productive member of our society.
And that's exactly what you're doing with your programs because you're providing that support, which then is leading to, as the numbers have shown us, that 0% recidivism rate based on the internal support inside the system and then the support that's provided outside.
Absolutely. You know, our programs are all about they're based on building self-efficacy first, right? The ability to self-manage, self-promote, overcome, move forward. Then we layer on all of that, the communication and the job skills and the workplace readiness. And so these women are highly motivated and eager to work and be part of the community. And what they really need is organizations that will not just take a chance in them, but believe in them and give them that opportunity to prove themselves and be part of the workplace.
So we're back to like somebody believing in you bigger than you believe in yourself, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and so, I'm just going to name like in my HR career, one of the questions that I don't know where I got it from, but one of the questions that I always ask when I see someone come through with a criminal history is first, hey, is there anything you want to share about this experience as it relates to what those learnings have been that are going to impact you in this job?
Yeah, and that's what we tell our, we train and coach our ladies on that, is that when you're in that job interview, be prepared to talk about it's not exactly what the crime was, but what have
Right.
you done since then to
Exactly.
overcome your past, right? Like
Right.
what have you learned? What have you done? How are you a better person today than you were then? And the why should somebody take a chance on you?
And I love that question so much. And I love the way you kind of rephrased it a little bit for a couple of reasons. I love it because I can tell from that question, like where the grit is, right?
Yeah.
So my challenge to my HR listeners out there is ask the question to understand what's behind it. Yes, you have to do it legally, of course, but ask the question to say, hey, what have you done to better yourself since this incident? And how does that impact you in this position? And the other thing with that too is before I ever send out a background check is I always ask, is there anything on the background check that I should be aware of before I run it?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
and we coach people to don't pretend that it's not there. Like be prepared.
it's
Say, hey,
there.
look, yeah, I need you to know. Yes, you are going to find things on my background, but that's who I was. This is who I am, right? And
Right.
this is where I was. That's where I was, and this is where I'm going. And I'd like to go there with you.
I love that because you just created that partnership in that. I'd like to go there with you.
I also encourage people as you're looking at a background checks, like think about what it is you're looking at. Like how long ago was this thing, right?
Mhm.
And because some background checks go back forever, and some go back 5 years, some go back 7 years, and so like ask yourself like, what has this person been doing since then? Like, is this even relevant? Was this I think back about in my early days of hiring people, and I was interviewing background check on a guy for a sales position came back, and it was like an aggravated assault, or it sounded like a violent crime. I get into conversation with them. Hey, no, what was this? What happened? Oh, well, I was in college and it was the fraternity and we were in a bar and it turned into a fight and, five people got arrested and therefore I got, this charge for this stupid bar fight when I was 21 years old, you know.
Right.
Because then you can kind of go, oh, all right, yeah, well, I got sons, I get it, my
Yeah.
son got arrested in college too, right? Like, so, think about have the conversation about what is it and how long ago was it and how relevant is it even to the job that you're hiring for.
And right there, you're building the relationship because all business is built on relationship and trust.
Yeah.
So when you're partnering with organizations for placement after these individuals have gone through the program internally, they're released, they're out, they're getting that job. What do you find that executive leadership team as these organizations has as far as beliefs that really support these individuals to be successful?
Yeah, I think that it goes back to kind of what I said a few minutes ago, but I would say the executive team has to be a team of people who really, truly, fundamentally believe that people matter, right? When you think about your core values, you have a core value that is about care for people or people matter, and or empower others. Like that's one of ours. Is that one of your core values, and do you really, really like believe that at your core? And then if you do, right, then you have to believe in a culture of second chances. And it's not just second chances as it relates to, you had a criminal record. You have to have a mindset of people deserve a second chance, whether it's a second chance for the background or for a mistake that they made in the workplace or something else that happened, right? You have to believe that no one should be discarded based on a bad decision or a big mistake that they made at any point in their life. I mean, that's just an absolute waste of human potential.
Thank you for that. Because now we have the belief side of it, right? So now I want to get to the action side of it.
Yeah.
So when we look at the action, which, I guess my question is what are the best ways to support employees coming to the workforce directly out of prison?
First and foremost, I say this all the time is give them the same opportunity, the same chance, and the same treatment and expectations that you would of any other employee. People want the chance. They want to have a clear understanding of what's expected of them, right? Here's my KPIs, here's my goals, here's how you're going to measure my performance. My measurements shouldn't be any different than the guy sitting next to me. And, if there's a need for, just like you would any other employee, if there's a need for additional training, additional coaching, you provide people feedback and performance reviews on a regular basis, feedback, real-time feedback about things that need to be improved. And then there may be some underlying modifications or accommodations that everybody doesn't need to know about. If it is somebody who's literally just coming out of incarceration, they may have to meet with their parole officer, or they may once a week have to leave early or do a meeting or something during their lunch break that's a requirement of their parole. That's really the only thing, right? They may
Yeah.
have transportation issues because they don't have a car or they don't have a license or right. And so understanding that, and if that's the case, do you have a carpool program? Is the bus, you're on a bus line, but the bus either gets there 2 hours before their start or 15 minutes after their start. Okay, well
Right.
maybe we change their start time so that we can
Right.
accommodate the bus schedule.
And what I'm hearing you say is instead of looking for the obstacles, let's look for the opportunities.
Yeah, I like that.
Amazing. So, as we start to come to a close today, Michelle, I'm curious what is one challenge that you have for our listeners as they take these insights, put them into some sort of an action to get some result?
I think that there's a lot of challenges, right? Like, and one thing I would put in people's heart is, what if this was your son or daughter or brother or sister, right? Like start there, and then if you approach the situation as if you're dealing with somebody that you actually personally care about, you can view it through eyes of empathy and compassion in a much more meaningful way. From an implementation standpoint, like the brass tacks of it is like, okay, well, what do you have to do? Reevaluate your background check. What are you checking for? Why are you checking for it? How long are you going back? what are the things in the background check that actually even make a difference to your organization, right? Think about, what matters and why. You can partner with great organizations like Checker to help with background checks and help you build the screening for what matters for your organization. Unconscious bias training is always a great thing to get involved in, is evaluate and identify what your own unconscious biases are, and what others are, because we don't think we have them, but we do. And yeah, and then, like I just keep saying, think about how do you incorporate your care for people and your empathy. And as HR folks, right? You got into this business. It's about giving people opportunities, helping people achieve their best, and recognizing that these are people too.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm curious, where can, our listeners find you? I'm going to link all the things in the show notes, but I know right now you have a little bit of an ask of within the foundation of placing individuals that are currently coming out of the system. Is that correct?
Sure, I always have some asks, right? Like, no self-respecting nonprofit business leader doesn't have asks.
No, they don't.
But first and foremost, right, what we are talking about is what we do, and it is about providing employment opportunities, entry-level employment opportunities for people with skills, talent, desire to have a good job and a career. We currently are placing about 250 to 300 women a year in these types of positions. So my ask is, if you, as a business leader, have a need for talent. I've got talent, so I'd love to talk to you about how we can fill your needs. And if we're not the right organization, I highly encourage you in your own local community to find organizations that are providing reentry training and support opportunities for people, and consider that as a pathway, as an untapped talent pool for your organization. I would also say that we are always in the market for volunteers, particularly in the HR department. One of the requirements for all the graduates of our programs is they have to do 3 mock interviews with somebody in the business community prior to their graduation, so that they're prepared. We're always in the market for HR professionals in particular who'd like to volunteer to help with resume reviews and interviews. So you can sign up for that on our website. And then, of course, as our organization focused on workforce development, I could just ask for random donations. Please come to our website, make a donation. It is what makes our organization work. But what we do is we are training and developing, hundreds of women to get the job skills that they need. And so I would ask you, and your organization, if you'd be willing to sponsor 1, 10, 15, 20 people going through our program to get the training and the education and certification necessary to get into these professional careers.
I had so many insights from that conversation with Michelle, and I'm going to go over 3 of those insights with a people strategy or an action in order to get some results. So the first insight that I had was when Michelle named, he believed in me when I could not believe in myself. Let's think about that. Each of us have had mentors along the way. And when we look at that from a people strategy perspective, how are we supporting our leaders and our team inside of our organizations to really rise up into the next level leaders that we need? These can be leaders on a line. This can be, leaders in a call center. This can be leaders in any specific area. When we can support that growth into that, guess what? We are then inspiring our people to perform and engaging them in a really meaningful way. And so much of that has to do with what are our thoughts, So when we think about who's coming into our organization and what are our thoughts about that, when we have negative thoughts about people, guess what? We're seeing them less than what their potential is. But when we think, man, this individual has so much potential and opportunity, and I can see them step into where they can be bigger than they see themselves, they have to take the action. But if I can provide the pathway for that, we can get great business results, personal results for them, And as leaders, when we do that, it is so fulfilling. So our first insight is, what are the thoughts that we have about the people in our organization? The action around that is to create pathways that we can support folks when we're thinking that and consciously being aware of it to ensure that we're moving our people forward. Our second insight in people strategy to get a result is create meaningful and fulfilling work. And our people strategy is creating career pathways or talent pathways. When we can show individuals where they can go from that entry level job all the way up through the organization, guess what? We're not just offering them a job, we're offering them a career. And we're telling them how to get there, whether that is in the behaviors, whether that is in the outcomes of the projects that they're working on and the numbers, or whether that is in education or, additional development for them. And guess what that gives us? That gives us folks that are engaged, because when we believe in them and show that we're pouring into them, they're going to also turn around and do that for us inside of our organization. So our second insight is to create meaningful work. Our people strategy is to create talent pathways so that we're offering careers and not just jobs to our folks. And the outcome is that we have folks that stay with us for longer and move up through the organization. Our third insight plus our people strategy to get our action is, 1 in 3 people have a criminal record. I was like, what? 1 in 3 people have a criminal record? And that's the same number as folks with a college degree? That blew my mind. That's a pretty amazing statistic. So the action around that is, what are our policies and procedures around bringing folks in with a criminal record? And how do we do that in a way that says, hey, here's our policy, here's why, and here's how we're going to support that? And are there other things that we can be doing to support individuals to ensure that we've got the right folks in the right seats inside of our organization? And let's face it, it is not always easy hiring the right people. And sometimes people are hard to find. There's a great number of folks that are available to work. We have to find them, yes. And we have to be willing to accept some of those flaws that come with that, as long as we have clear expectations about what the right now looks like. And so our outcome is we're able to fill some of those seats and partner with organizations to support on that backside of it. One of the things I will name is, I mentioned in our conversation with Michelle, but I worked for a community action agency, and I would partner with organizations similar to this all of the time and say, hey, look, I can't, ask certain questions. And there's certain things as the HR person, I just quite honestly don't want to know. However, what I can share with you based on the agreements that we have as you being a support for individuals, and for me, is I can name, as long as they're signing off on it, that I can share behaviors with you. Hey, we had some, attitude issues today. Hey, you know what? This person has done amazing and blew things out of the water. Guess what? That allows us to get the support to folks that they need, so that, guess what? They are in meaningful, fulfilling work. We're getting the work done. And as individuals and leaders, it feels good when we can lift people up. So my challenge to you is, take one insight from the conversation today and turn it into an action that is personally fulfilling and fulfilling to your business and those business outcomes. With that, can't wait to see you next week. Have a great week. Thank you so much for listening today. I'd love to connect with you. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn at Traci, Traci Austin, and at our website at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. If you'd love to learn more about our process, please reach out to us. And again, thank you so much for listening and sharing your feedback with us through a review. Have a fantastic day.